Rebonjour tout le monde. Le prochain tête-à-tête, celui auquel vous allez assister, s'intitule Performativité du corps, intelligence émotionnelle et technologie. Un tête-à-tête entre Emilia Păunescu et Alexandre Saintonge. Rapidement, Alexandre va introduire sa pratique en français, mais le reste de la conversation va avoir lieu en anglais parce que Emilia arrive directement de Bucarest, de Roumanie, est arrivée hier soir à 8h30 et puis ne s'exprime pas en français, mais en anglais. Donc, n'hésitez pas à la fin, si vous avez des questions en français, à les poser. Moi, je peux les traduire sans souci. Donc, sans plus tarder, les biographies. Donc, Emilia Păunescu est une artiste multidisciplinaire dont les œuvres prennent la forme d'installations immersives, combinant l'image, le son, la performance et les nouvelles technologies. Emilia est également la fondatrice et la directrice créative du festival Nova en Roumanie, un événement unique qui explore de nouveaux langages créatifs en engageant divers groupes d'artistes et de scientifiques, dont des processus de collaboration significatifs. Outre les laboratoires créatifs qu'il englobe et dont il expose les résultats dans le cadre du festival, Nova possède également une branche éducative qui présente un riche programme d'ateliers de conférences et propose chaque année une résidence de développement. Bonjour, Emilia. Alexandre Saintonge est artiste intermédiaire ainsi qu'un performeur sonore qui explore les mutations du corps performatif à travers ses médiations sonores, textuelles et visuelles. Docteur, PhD, en études et pratiques des arts à l'UQAM en 2015 et professeur adjoint à l'École d'art de l'Université Laval. Il est fasciné par la créativité en tant qu'approche pragmatique de l'insaisissable. Il a réalisé plus d'une vingtaine de publications et a présenté son travail au Québec, au Canada, au Chili et dans divers pays d'Europe. Il a fondé les éditions Quelque chose, Scone Press, avec Christophe Migon, et il crée au sein de collectifs ainsi qu'avec de nombreux artistes, Marie Brassard, Simon Brown, Karine Deneau, Kant Nagano, Linda Gaudreau, Klaxon Gueule, Conditions plurielles, Suzanne Leblanc, Min, Linno, Jocelyn Robert, Second Regard, Chalabi Effect, Undo and Unzip Violence, parmi d'autres. Bienvenue. Donc, sans plus tarder, Emilia Păunescu va nous faire une courte présentation de son travail.
Sorry, jet lag. But we'll get there. By the end of the presentation, you'll get a sense of my work, my universe, and what I do, which I think it's in a very good synchronicity with Alexandra's work. So this is AO. Maybe we can play it also with sound, a trailer of this work, and after that, I'll tell you a bit about it. So AO is an interactive, immersive installation on the subject of anxiety. This is something in my practice that I'm very passionate about, collaborating with professionals from psychology, neuroscience, various social sciences that apply to the themes that keep me up at night and that I want to do or say something about it. For AO, I collaborated with the Center for Research in Neuroperformance Enhancement in Bucharest, and we took various data from EEGs from people suffering on various degrees of anxiety, and also relevant research on how anxiety manifests in the body. For the music, we turned it into, for the EEG data, we turned it into sound, and that became the music in the installation, which is actually spatialized. and enhances the immersive aspect of the work. So I like this idea that we took the bodies of the people from the EEGs and turned them into music. And then I worked and filmed 55 short video diaries of dancers and actors with their real stories with anxiety, and just ask them to go through them through body movement. And then those became the performance that you see in the screen surrounding you. Maybe we put like the next slide so you can get a sense of also how the installation looks. Yeah, this is an intermezzo that you have because the work is interactive. So this is not the next slide, I mean. Yeah, so it looks like this. You are surrounded by 11 screens, and there's an interface, an interactive interface, through which you can communicate with this multiple body that I call AOIs, that is actually short from all-in-one. When you enter in the installation, you choose on the interface the level of anxiety that you feel at that moment in your body, and then your selection triggers this choir, because I imagined all these people form like choirs that sing your anxiety and help you process it. And this is actually part of a research I'm doing on the extended brain and how we think, not just with our brain, but also with our bodies, with the people surrounding us, through our relationships, and with the spaces. And this is something that I put in all of my works, and that's why I call my works environments that support people, and that's the intention, to support people to have these processes of getting to know themselves better in the spaces, in these environments, and also to grow through that process, to becoming aware of that. So I made these choirs that surround you. But what's interesting is that I was really passionate about keeping the truthfulness of this experience, and this is part of the success of the work, because it really moves you from the moment you get there. This is probably the videos from the actual work. We're not working now, but it's very visceral and very raw and very honest, and you can feel that when you enter the work. And yeah, basically I love the fact that we worked with data, but at the same time we turned those into personal stories and to a very sensitive experience when you get there. It brings you in the present moment. You say, this is just the fact that you declare. It might seem a simple question, how much anxiety do you feel now? But just the fact that you express that also triggers some processes within your body. And then when you see that expressed through the means of all the bodies of all these 11 people, and also through the bodies of the people that we put in the music, which were the EEG data turned into sound, it forms this, multiple body in which we heal each other in a way, or at least we see that we can look at this. It's easier to look at this when we do it in a collective process. Yeah, and also an interesting thing that we did with this work, maybe, yeah, we will skip these 2 slides where we had the videos that you will have to imagine. And an interesting thing that you will see in the next video about AO is we did in the first exhibition, we brought the team from the research center I worked with in the gallery space, and there we measured the brain activity of the people visiting the installation to see what happens in their bodies and how they actually react in that environment, and then have Dr. Damoșaru explain to the people present this process a bit more in depth. And of course, for many people, it was such a novel experience to see what happens in their brains. So yeah, in the next slide, you can see in this video also a bit of the sense of the installation, but this thing we did with measuring their activity. Also with sound would be nice. Yeah, so I see I'm not very good in fitting into time schedule, so I would have normally like 30 seconds to tell you more. I also wanted to tell you a bit more about Have You Seen My Body, which is a work.
You can tell her.
I can, yes, maybe. Okay. So this is a different pillar in my work, a result of one of the collaborative processes that I coordinate within NOVA, the festival Amelie was nicely telling you about in the introduction. There, basically, I did started NOVA more focused on showing, on exhibiting artworks that, because I was working in an independent theater then, and the shape of it and the space was not very appropriate for theatrical productions, traditional theatrical productions. So this NOVA was my proposal of content that would make use of this weirdness of the space to propose performative works that use a different kind of relationship between the audience and the artist on stage. But in time it grew into this creative lab that finishes with the festival. This is actually how I present NOVA, in fact, because the creative lab and the research, artistic research we do before the festival happens and that we show within the festival, for me, is more important and more rich. And Have You Seen My Body is such an installation where I worked with almost 17 artists and professionals from psychology, from neuroscience, and communication this time, because the theme that we tackled was proprioception and how we feel our body, how we get a sense of where we are when we are in movement. So I created this experience where basically it's a one-on-one meeting, a 20-minute one-on-one meeting, a performative installation where this performer takes you in and guides you through this experience where you discover your body in various places at the same time and guides your attention towards all these instances of yourself. So at the entrance in the installation, we capture your body in various postures, and then we also record your voice saying some things, but you don't know what will happen with them, and they become part of the story that you hear narrated on stage. And you go there and the performer takes you in and kind of becomes this wizard of emotions and contains you and shows you as you become part of the images that surround you in that immersive environment. In the last slide, there's a short video where you can get a sense of how the installation works best. Maybe if we can go to there. No, that's previous. No, the other way around.
Allez vers la fin.
Mm-hmm. It's the last slide. So these are parts of photos.
But I always leave my body in the ocean, so I always come back to me.
Yeah, so I think
that's it.
That's it, yeah.
It's your turn, Alexandre. Merci, merci, Emilia.
Oui, thank you. Donc, c'est ça, je vais parler. Ma présentation va être en français, puis après, on va parler en anglais. Je vais partir le temps. Donc, vous pouvez mettre la présentation PowerPoint, si vous voulez bien. Donc, Alexandre Saint-Onge. Je vais donc vous parler d'un projet vraiment très récent, c'est-à-dire un projet qui est dans le fond, qui est vraiment pas terminé, qui est vraiment une ébauche. Ça, c'est un début de quelque chose que j'ai entamé peut-être. Donc, ça a commencé en fait en juin dernier. Fait que vous pouvez mettre, oui, exactement, puis peut-être mettre la trame sonore dans le fond aussi en background. Et dès que la trame sonore est partie, tu peux. Oui, exact. Bon, voilà. Donc, vous pouvez déjà passer à la deuxième diapositive. Donc, un projet, comme je dis, très récent que j'ai entamé donc, en juin dernier, puis qui va être, c'est un processus, là, ça risque de se terminer à la fin de mon existence. Hein. C'est l'idée, c'est lié pour de vrai, dans le sens que c'est que j'ai acheté pour la première fois de ma vie une maison hein, en juin dernier, pas loin de la chute Montmorency, devant le fleuve aussi. Vous entendez d'ailleurs des beaux écoulements. Fait que je dirais que la fluidité et l'eau et la matière aquatique est un des continuums entre cette maison et ses environnements. Ce qu'on entend en ce moment, en fait, c'est les entrailles de la maison. C'est-à-dire, j'ai mis dans la maison, en fait, j'appelle ça habitation augmentée pour l'instant, mais c'est une maison qui est à la fois un laboratoire, vraiment, et aussi une œuvre d'art qui va processuelle, hein, qui va se développer sur des années. Là, ce qu'on entend, c'est donc, comme je disais, les sons dans la tuyauterie, de la maison qui est amplifiée puisque j'ai des microphones partout. Des microphones, on peut passer peut-être on peut peut-être avancer 2-3 diapositives. Ouais, encore une. Encore. Ça vous donne une idée. Donc ça, c'est ma cave. C'est mon vide sanitaire. Et c'est là que j'ai mis et que je développe une installation permanente qui est structurée par des actions performatives, en fait. Et il y a donc un microphone, des caméras de surveillance dans le vide sanitaire qui sont diffusées. Donc, le son et l'image est diffusé au premier étage, au rez-de-chaussée aussi, qui est diffusé donc dans des haut-parleurs. J'ai des haut-parleurs dans toutes les pièces ou presque. Des moniteurs un peu aussi partout dans ma maison. Donc, je peux aussi... Donc, les images qui sont captées dans mes performances que je fais dans le vide sanitaire sont projetées donc à mon rez-de-chaussée, qui sont recaptées par des caméras et qui sont rediffusées aussi en haut à l'étage. Et donc, si certains sons, comme les sons qu'on entend ici, dès que j'ouvre un robinet, quand je marche, etc., ça amplifie ma présence dans l'appartement, donc en permanence. Et au deuxième étage, où je rediffuse les sons, c'est traité électroniquement là, par des circuits électroniques, des pédales d'effet, etc. Fait que ça crée une maison vraiment psychédélique. C'est ça le but, d'amplifier vraiment ma présence tout le temps. Donc, c'est un peu pour moi un travail sur une ergonomie existentielle hein, puisque depuis que je suis professeur, c'était de trouver aussi le moyen de vivre complètement en relation perpétuelle avec mon art et ma créativité pour être juste comme pouvoir créer n'importe quand, tout le temps. Donc, même quand je déjeune, si je peux faire de la musique, je peux me mettre à baigner ces murs, je peux casser des affaires. Dans l'image, au début, vous voyez, je poignarde mes murs, je casse les miroirs, je fais toutes sortes de choses, je rentre dans des transes, hein, et il se passe des choses. Et donc, c'est vraiment, comme je disais, donc, mon inspiration pour ça, c'était, bien entendu, le Merzbau de Kurt Schwitters, hein, qui avait développé dans sa maison à Hanovre dans les années 20 jusqu'en 1930, avant de déménager son Merzbau dans les environs d'Oslo. Une maison donc, où l'artiste en Dada avait créé un environnement, une installation dans lequel il pouvait vivre et modifier en permanence. Fait que moi, c'est un peu l'idée, c'est que d'être toujours dans un mouvement comme ça continuel. Et ici, donc, ici, on voit donc tout ce qui est les éléments visuels sont structurés par des actions performatives. Donc, j'improvise presque tous les jours, ou du moins hebdomadairement. J'ai des rituels que je fais, au moins 2-3 rituels par semaine, où je fais des actions performatives et sonores dans mon appartement. Tout est capté. Ici, c'est fait avec un plancher flottant que j'avais amené de mon appartement à Limoilou avant. Parce que j'avais développé une première ébauche de ce projet-là dans mon petit 4,5 dans Limoilou. J'avais un tambour qui est comme à la suite de ma cuisine, qui donnait vers la cour et qui n'était pas isolé pour l'hiver. Fait que l'hiver, il y avait de la neige qui s'accumulait aussi dans le tambour et j'avais partie des processus où je mettais des œuvres antécédentes, mais aussi des œuvres que je créais pour le tambour, que je mettais dans la salle puis qui se dégradaient l'hiver. Fait que c'est un travail un peu sur l'entropie puis la négantropie aussi, la tension entre entropie et négantropie qui m'habite constamment. Et quand j'ai déménagé Mon propriétaire était très content que j'achète le plancher flottant que j'avais complètement scrappé. Hein. Bien entendu, il avait mis ça neuf avant que j'arrive. C'était très cheap de toute façon, mais je l'avais scrappé. Et donc, je lui ai dit, est-ce que je peux ramener le plancher au moins du tambour? Ça va être comme, vu que pour moi, c'était le début de ce processus-là. J'ai remis donc le plancher de mon tambour dans le moelleux, dans ma cave, dans mon vide sanitaire. Vous pouvez passer à la diapositive suivante. Vous voyez donc, il y a une petite caméra de surveillance qui est là, qui filme les actions. Voilà la suivante encore, s'il vous plaît. Et donc, c'est ça. Donc, ça évolue constamment. Et cette caméra de surveillance-là, donc, comme je disais, est reprojetée. Et donc, ça filme quand je fais mes actions performatives qui sont refilmées par un écran. Je vais revenir là-dessus. Et ça se constitue. Je suis en train de faire un long métrage avec ça qui devrait paraître comme en juin. On peut passer à la diapositive suivante. Ici, c'est donc vraiment c'est assez trash. C'est exactement ce que j'aime. Et c'est une collaboration aussi pour moi avec les acariens, avec la poussière. Je parle aux acariens, je rentre dans la poussière. Je ne suis pas rendu à en manger encore. C'est tentant. On va voir ce qui va se passer avec ça. Il faut que je fasse attention un peu à ma santé. Je ne suis pas très bon là-dedans, d'ailleurs. On peut passer à la suivante. Ça, c'est un exemple d'objet qui était... avec le mairie, ça, en fait, c'est une synthèse de 4-5 différentes publications que j'ai parues. Vous voyez, il y a comme des agglomérations mutantes comme ça. Vous pouvez passer à la prochaine diapositive. Des objets comme ça faits avec ma serrure. Donc, des objets sculpturaux. Là, je vous donne juste des détails. C'est vraiment le bordel. Il est partout. Je peux peindre ces murs. Je dessine ces murs. Comme je disais, je découpe les murs. Je prends des couteaux dans les murs. Vous pouvez passer à la diapositive suivante. Ici, j'ai un interphone que j'ai intégré à une installation, mais qui me permet de faire des récitals de poésie sonore pour les passants parfois. Donc, je pèse sur le bouton et je crie dans mon truc. Et comme ça accompagne aussi ce qu'on peut voir de l'extérieur de la maison, comme vous allez voir. Fait que c'est comme une exposition permanente et en développement. Mais c'est aussi, donc, à la fois une installation en développement par des actions performatives, mais c'est aussi un instrument. Ça devient un véritable instrument dans lequel j'habite et qui m'habite. Passez à la suivante, s'il vous plaît, diapositive. Là, vous voyez la différence de qualité aussi. Donc, il y a une caméra de surveillance qui capte donc les actions performatives. Ça a un peu plus cette qualité-là une fois que c'est reproduit dans un des moniteurs au premier étage. Et ça, c'est recapté par des vidéos. Fait que vous voyez aussi qu'ici, il y a un travail sur l'entropie, donc une entropie des objets. Il y a aussi une entropie de l'image. Hein. Je m'intéresse beaucoup à la médiation, autant sonore et visuelle, et comment, en captant et recaptant, il y a une forme d'entropie de l'image pour habiter, pour que, en fait, que le long-métrage ait la même type de qualité sensible que ma présence dans mon vide sanitaire la nuit en tout temps. Vous pouvez passer à la prochaine diapositive. Ça, c'est un autre diapositif qui est en fait une caméra endoscopique. Une caméra endoscopique, c'est une caméra qu'on peut se mettre dans la bouche, dans la narine, dans les oreilles, dans mes pantalons. J'aime ça mettre ça là. Vous pouvez vous imaginer où on peut la mettre aussi. Et donc, parfois, je porte. Donc, j'ai développé comme une espèce de sculpture. Comme ça, la nuit, des fois, je peux aller faire de la performance sur mon terrain avec cet accoutrement bizarre avec des lampes de poche, au grand plaisir de mes voisins. Mais pour l'instant, personne ne s'est plaint. Je vais pousser ma loque jusqu'au bout. Là. On va voir l'été prochain. Donc, ça, c'est un des dispositifs. Là, je ne parle pas de la chaise. Hein. Je parle du fil avec les tie wraps et les trucs d'électrique. C'est mon type de travail. Prochaine diapositive, s'il vous plaît. Prochaine diapositive. Donc, il y a aussi toutes sortes d'installations comme ça que je fais dans mon stationnement. Donc, c'est des actions très simples. Vu que j'ai pas de permis de conduire, pas de voiture, j'ai un stationnement. Donc, ça devient un espace d'exposition aussi pour moi, pour mes voisins, les passants, etc. Vous pouvez passer à la diapositive suivante. Donc, même l'hiver, hein, je travaille comme ça, je fais des dessins. Et ça, des fois, ça devient des partitions. C'est-à-dire, je prends un cliché photographique, ça devient une partition graphique que j'interprète en son, en performance. Et donc, à tous les jours, je bouge un petit quelque chose comme ça. Pour vraiment être toujours en relation, dans une constante relation entre ma vie et mon art. Hein, vraiment dans la perspective d'un affranchissement des frontières entre l'art et la vie. Diapositive suivante, s'il vous plaît. Ça, c'est l'exposition qu'on voit des fois, qu'on peut voir la nuit. Il y a un petit haut-parleur là, dans lequel je peux crier. C'est assez pratique quand je vois des gens passer. C'est assez surprenant de pouvoir faire des poèmes sonores et de voir les gens comme qu'est-ce qui se passe là. J'aime bien. C'est très soft, hein? C'est pas violent. L'idée, c'est pas de violenter les gens, c'est juste de piquer curiosité peut-être. Vous pouvez passer à la diapositive suivante. Et là, je dirais que les prochaines, avancez rapidement. Donc, à un rythme comme ça à peu près. Là, tac, 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 tac. Ça, c'est une entité que j'ai développée aussi, qui est l'entité protectrice de la maison avec laquelle je performe. Donc, je me rendrai jusqu'à cette photo, peut-être la photo avant, juste pour voir le paysage. Donc ça, c'était une performance que j'ai faite cet été qui consistait. Donc là, on voit un peu la vue de mon truc. Je ne coupe pas le gazon du tout. Ça va être de plus en plus sauvage. Et là, vous pouvez passer à la diapositive suivante. Donc, dans cette action, donc, je fais différents types de performances. Comme ça, c'est une performance cet été qui consistait donc à regarder le soleil avec des lunettes de soleil, mais qui sont quand même, je dois admettre, des lunettes de soleil assez cheap. Là, ça vient de chez Ardennes. Et je regardais, l'idée, c'était de fixer le soleil pendant tout un après-midi, en fait, avec un exacto comme ça. J'essayais de focusser et de découper le soleil et de déchirer par le biais de déchirer le soleil, déchirer mon regard aussi, qui était bien entendu altéré par les rayons de soleil que je regardais pendant une longue période de temps. Vous pouvez passer à la diapositive suivante. Donc, voici un artefact qui a remplacé mon corps dans le tas de branches. Et je terminerai par la dernière diapositive, comme ça, qui est une croix comme ça qui reprend, avec laquelle je performe aussi. Parfois, je déplace toutes sortes d'objets sur mon terrain. Et là, ça crée comme un réseau aussi. Donc, ça va vraiment être en développement. C'est comme, j'ai essayé différentes itérations. J'essaie d'y aller le plus soft possible pour commencer, pour ne pas faire trop peur à mes voisins. Et éventuellement, je pousserai, comme je dirais, ma loc jusqu'au maximum que je peux. Puis éventuellement, on verra ce qui se passe. Mais je voulais vous parler de ce projet-là parce que pour moi, c'est qu'on parlait d'histoire personnelle avec The Invisible Dog tantôt. Pour moi, c'est un des projets les plus importants pour l'instant parce que c'est pour créer vraiment une continuité habité par le professeur. Pour ceux qui sont professeurs, vous savez à quel point il manque toujours de temps pour notre travail, puis pour m'assurer d'avoir le plus de temps possible, et pour travailler tout le temps, ce qui fait que je travaille tout le temps, puis je peux toujours faire de l'art en tout temps, puis après, chaque semaine, je peux faire une synthèse de ce qui s'est passé. Fait qu'à travers ça, il va y avoir autant de production, donc textuelle, visuelle, des livres qui vont paraître, comme en juin, il va y avoir le long métrage risque de paraître, en même temps aussi qu'un livre d'images et de dessins qui sont des croquis plus conceptuels liés à toute cette ergonomie existentielle que j'essaie de conceptualiser, et aussi des pièces même avec les étudiants qui participent, dont Vincent qui est ici. On est dans un de mes projets de recherche. On va collaborer aussi, faire des performances. L'idée, là, pour cet été, au mois de mai, c'est de se construire une cage à humains. On va se construire une cage à humains dans le vide sanitaire, puis on va s'enfermer pour quelques temps dans cette cage à humains. Ouais, donc voilà, j'ai dépassé de 2 minutes aussi, mais bon, désolé.
Mais la raison pour laquelle je vous ai invité, the reason why I invited you both is your cosmogonies. Both of you are like amazingly deep, intense, and foisonnant in French. There's a lot to explore, and since we have only 50 minutes this afternoon, I'm gonna start with a very specific question like that we can go on, and then we're going to discuss around it. So both of you work with the body in different ways. You work with the body as a performing body, you direct some other bodies more in the theater way, and you work in a real performance like yourself, performing artist. And then I would like to know a little bit between this relationship between the body and performance in your work, how you manage this presence of the human, and also since when you made a room for technology in your work, because in both your works, in different ways, you have a room for technology, but it's really in a different way. So please go on.
You want to start?
Sure.
Yeah.
Let's keep the rhythm, as you said. Actually, I was thinking about when you were phrasing the question. I was thinking about this idea of the body as working with the body as a tool, as you said, as a performative tool. Because in fact, I feel my work and in my perspective. The other bodies, the things, the objects, the spaces are part in a way of this process of actually you knowing yourself, and are extensions in a way of your cognitive apparatus to understand the world and yourself in it. And relationship and connection is basically at the bottom of my work. Bodies can be anything, actually. It's a word I really like, because you can say, a body of work, a body of, body in general is something that we look at. It's a concept that helps us put order into the world. But in fact, how we actually perceive the world and actually what generates action, movement in our body. And this is something I'm really excited about reading lately about predictive processing, which is basically this new research field, not actually quite new, it's been here for like in the past 30 years, but for many, many years people thought that, or this was the understanding, that we take information from the environment through our sensorial processes, and then that goes to the brain, and then we understand. But actually how it happens is that our brain constantly hallucinates, constantly guesses how the world might be based on what I know now. And then what the sensory organs do is correct the guessing the brain does. And then movement comes and action. You do action because this mechanism, this predictive processing mechanism, forces you to correct the mistakes your body perceives. So just to put an example, because I can understand this is a complex field. My intention is to, I don't know, take this phone, but all my, my organs give this information that at this point I'm not holding this phone in my hand. So then my body will do the actions to correct this perception so that I'll be actually holding that phone. And that prediction that my brain did is correct. So in this perspective, and I really love that, and I think it speaks also about technology, because for me, my relationship with technology is quite conflictual, actually, because for in many contexts, I don't describe myself as a new media artist or working with technology, and I actually understand quite little. I understand just enough so I can work with people that know how to work with technology to receive the responses and the interactions that I want to have in my works and in the environments I create. But it's not about the technology. And coming back to what I was telling you about this constant guessing of the brain, I really think it's amazing, and it speaks about this virtuality that technology brings into discussion, because when you look at things like this, I understand the world by constantly making it up, basically. Then what is real? Are you really there if I'm not connected to you? Everything is, in a sense, this constant dynamics between material, the body, the brain, and the world is based on a relationship that has a subjunctive, a what if, in it. So
it's interesting, but it's like it's really linked with also the question of intentionalities and meaning that like all the body, like there's no intention, I'm really like there's intention, but when I perform, like I'm interested in that idea of like that it's the body is first, then intentionality comes afterwards, or I don't like, and this agency always kind of in a way like cancel my intentionality, and that's why I'm trying to get in that trance and that reconstructing of the world through hallucination. That's why like I work a lot with hallucination, and you just use that word, and I like that relationship, that the in between that is always construct, but it's an artifact, like an artifact that is made for me through hallucination. So it's just a world of construction, really material, but that the intentionality is really like not at it is. I'm guided by that process and by the artificiality of that process, even if it's really embodied. But like it creates things that I would have never thought of. So it's interesting that between it's me, I'm constructing the reality through these hallucinations, but I find that I'm not really constructing, and it's not myself. It's like some weird forces or entities that comes to my body and visit me, and get possessed. And then that's exactly how I feel. Oh, okay. So there's like, and I like that what you said about like when picking up the phone and like the question of intentionality. I was just wondering, like with the scientists you're working with, like in neuroscience and stuff, like how can I ask a question like that? Just it's a discussion. Huh? Okay, and then so
we can do whatever we want.
Question, and do they address the question of intentionality? You know, in the philosophy of action, like there's like this really big question about is action intentional or not. Like, let's say in the book Intention by Gertrude Elizabeth Margaret Anscombe, she's questioning that, like in the philosophy of action. Like, so do you work with that question? Like,
whether intentionality
and then with the body and where it's placed. Yeah.
Well, actually, for me, yes. The fact that I am helped by these scientists, for me, it makes me, as you said, because many times I feel like I'm visited by forces, or that, or I don't know. Like I'm kidding, but I don't know what's real anymore, because this flexible environment in which I work with, it's, you know, everything is a bit all over the place, and I like to stay in that place, because I think it's a place that takes you further. Because when you accept that things are not necessarily super fixed in a reality, but you do have intentionality and you do have agency to kind of co-create your environment with the others, with the things that already exist. Yeah. So coming back to whether I ask this, or whether I ask the scientists about this, is in fact what calms me down, that this is, for instance, predictive processing, and what I was telling you about before is like the scientific explanation of many processes that felt a bit crazy in my head, and when you understand that this is actually how the body works, and of course it's easier to sit on old theories that would describe a more certain world, but because you fear, of course, we need clarity, we need finality, we need all these things to feel safe, and safety is one of the things that I put in my works, because otherwise you would not open yourself up to these very personal processes that I'm hoping people will unfold within the environments I create. So yeah, it's really supported actually scientifically.
I was just because there's so many studies about that, and some questions that. And
I was lucky to find people to collaborate with that are open to this kind of discussions, but I intentionally went to people. So Veruvis, for instance, the center I collaborated with for AO, is not a traditional medical clinic or research center funded by the state in Bucharest. It's actually an independent center that has a very personal story behind it as it was founded. And the people there, and the CEO of that center is someone that understands what I do and where I come from. So then this dialogue can happen for real, and we can speak about the same things.
Yeah. And you work on meaning with the body and technology, and that question of agency. Of course, we have agency, but do you think though that the other, of course, other matter, like objects, like you said, all kind of bodies, like objects, animals, species, rocks, they all have agency too, and that how this collaboration kind of decenter yourself still, because it's like even if you have an agency, I always feel that I get always deterritorialized, my intentions, and so it's never really coming from me, because
I think agency is something that comes out of the relationship between things. Exactly. So of course you do start off with an intention, or I want to do something, but the trick, and for me at least in my perspective, in remaining authentic to what I do, is to actually let these processes, after I put the spark in, I bring in the people that I intuitively think will bring value to that process. And I put all these elements, but then what happens after that is actually the agency that comes out of that. Okay, and it's a mysterious thing, and I love that, that we don't know exactly, that we have like a half of a plan. And then
I would ask Alexandre, what is your relationship with randomness? Because you tackled a little bit randomness, although your system of work is very organized, constructed, but there's still, you're looking for randomness and being sort of surprised. And in your work, what you presented to us today, in always what you present anytime, for me, there's a lot of space for randomness, and I would like to know how much you play with that? Is it like important?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. Like it's a complex one, I will say, because it's random and
Love
not.
that.
Yeah, because I'm Cajun, like like John Cage is like really important for me. So of course, like I thought about that for years and years, but I'm not as systematic as Cage. Like with the, I'm not using so much protocols, and I don't use the yeeking for composing. Like I like that, but the randomness is still there when, let's say, I throw things like like all those little piece of wood in my parking, and then I interpret that as a score. There's some kind of like throwing the dice, of course, but so I work with system like that, but it's really more improvised. Like it's always through like that's maybe something to clarify is important. I don't work so systematically. The system builds itself up from improvisation. So the first. Just it's really the body. It's an improvisation. It's a gesture. The gesture generates something, and what comes out of this gestures, the artifacts that are coming out of that, becomes like a score or becomes an organization, a trigger for another action. So it's more that than total randomness. But yeah, it's there, of course. And sometimes I like just. Like you say, it comes from me. Let's say, like I throw myself in my crawl space, and then like object goes, and then like I do something with that, like so it's like, but it really comes the body's the first impulse, and after that I'm thinking about the relation and what is the output of that, and then it's the next. So it's really process based. But yeah, it's really like that. But yeah, and then randomness. What is randomness? Like
What is randomness? Yeah.
When I use computer, like because I didn't answer the question about technology. I use it a bit less these days, but I used to work a lot with technologies, and it was also to work with generative processes that were becoming like, how you say that in English, like instructions for performance work. So the computer was giving me the instructions. So it was really the agency between analyzing the data from the body, going back to the computer, creating a score in real time, and then react to that, and then like that. So that was more, I think I was using more systematic randomness when I was using digital technologies.
Why did you stop?
I just got bored by it at some point. It's just I like it. I like people working with technology. Like actually, like I developed like I worked a lot with new technologies. Like I was in 2000 in Conditions Plurielles. That Lino and Burton, Alex Burton, that's going to talk afterwards. We've been knowing each other for more than 23 years now. So we're working a lot with like all those different kind of technologies, and because I got inspired by working with them also, I was using it in my own work with, let's say, using a Kinect that in a PatchMax and blah blah blah, like all those things, and I still like it, but I just put it on the side since a couple of years. It was also to like force myself out of that, just to work more with materiality. So I tried to transpose with objects and without using digital technologies, inspired by what I learned from using computers and digital technologies. But I really transpose it in the material world more now. But I still use cameras, microphones, and electronic treatment, but it's more analog, like I will say, like these days. But yeah.
What's the impact of having your house completely mic'd on your everyday life?
Yeah.
And does it affect your way to go through your days and
Yes.
your school and teaching and relationship with people? How it goes?
Yeah. But for me, it's making everything smoother. I will say, like more meditative and more artistic all the time. Like it's like I like the fact that to just have breakfast and hearing, and then it triggers other processes in my head, and then like I want to write a poem now, and then you just write it, and like it's just to trigger to be constantly in my imaginary world. But the imaginary world now is not just here; it's like in connection. It's like the house becomes an extension of the body. So, and for me, the house is like I'm using a bit the house like also like a prosthesis, and that's what those digital technologies were kind of that's what they were doing, like in my performance work. This kind of prosthetic kind of So
I would ask a last quick question. I know it's kind of a big question for a last quick question, but what's the room or importance you make to emotional intelligence in your work?
Oh, wow. I've been really interested in sense-making processes lately, and the two main projects I will do this year are, one of them is actually called Sense, literally. And I think it's very close to my approach in this regard, because emotional intelligence, and in general, I'm actually tackling intelligence processes as understood by, by being in a context, not just thinking about how can we be smarter, because I think this is a misconception that in general, when people think about intelligence or being smart, they think about this kind of logical, rational ways of, going further with your brain. But in fact, it's about intelligence for me is about being in an environment, understanding it and working with it for your benefit in a way, however that looks for you, whatever makes you happy in that environment, so whatever you're trying to create there. Yeah, in this, I was telling you in the beginning about this idea of thinking with your body, thinking with relationships, thinking with spaces. In this performance piece, it's a theatrical performance piece, Intermedia. We have 3 performers that will have their brain activity measured, and based on, they will basically do together with the audience various sense-making processes in trying to reveal a text that is on stage. So gradually, in the beginning, you only have a few words in that text. You don't know what it means. And this triggers everyone, this processes of what is written there. And they will do throughout the show all these dynamics between themselves and with the audience, using their bodies, using the relationship with the other performance and with the space to try to synchronize in cohesive mental, emotional state, so to become a collective in a way. And that will trigger, when that happens, will trigger the revealing of more words from that text. So by the end of the performance, they will be able to read the full text, which will create some kind of relevant epiphany about the sense of their experience together. So I don't know if it answers your questions, but in a way, it speaks about my approach on involving these processes in my work.
Excellent. What about you?
It's going to be fast. Because
Parce que t'as pas d'émotion.
I try to.
No,
What do you mean?
I don't have emotion. That doesn't, no, I cry all the time, of course. But no, for me, it's really important. But when I talk about existential ergonomics, it's a bit in that sense also. It's really, but it's a bit of it's affect also. It's emotion, affect, which is a bit different, and body, I will say, yeah, I really work intuitively. Like it's really, like, I'm an improviser mainly, so of course I just go throw myself somewhere and I react. But it's something else than emotional intelligence. I will say it's deep listening. But also I'm a musician, so it's a bit about being really attentive to what is there and react, and not overthink about it. Of course, like really respond really fast to whatever is there, and all the time. I try to be always in a performative state when I teach, when I create, but also when I just eat and when I just walk. Like I'm always trying to like be in that focus and trigger some weird hallucinations that I'm a kind of a fetishist of hallucinations.
So the act of presence is very important in your practice, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Just being really present. I try, because I'm a total neurotic person at first, so it's like I try to tune myself all the time, and it's like, and I think I'm better at it than I used to be. Like, and I'm crossing my fingers that it's going to get better.
You practice as well.
Yeah, it's a common form of my own form of meditation. Yeah, I have all different kind of technique that are not exported from other kind of technique that I developed. Like that's why I sing a lot. I breathe a lot. I like sometimes it's just touching the floor like for like 15 minutes, like and then you just it's like just to anchor yourself. Yeah.
Thanks. Thank you very much. On aurait le temps pour une question s'il y a quelqu'un qui a une question. Est-ce que quelqu'un qui a une question? Un étudiant passionné, une étudiante passionnée? Oui.
Je suis pas étudiante, mais je suis passionnée. OK. I would just like to question you about what I would call an intermediate level, which is a level, the usual level we live in or at, which has a whole vocabulary like maybe intention, agency, and that it seems that you are questioning this level by introducing another one, which we do not see and which is captured by instruments or technologies. So would it be something like trying to introduce a modus vivendi, which is kind of new, following certain technologies from which we know that there are other levels which wouldn't be seen or perceived otherwise?
Do you want to answer that? It's a complex question, but we can be fast.
Yeah. No, okay. I will just I will say super quickly that your question got me thinking, especially about that part where I spoke about virtuality and the possible that is in this, our relationship between our bodies and the world. In a way, yes, I feel that by putting our attention to these digital environments, of course, we create space for them to make sense in the experience that we create.
Yeah, I will say the same thing, of course. Yeah, that's what I like working with the technology and those it gives me other clues of seeing other stuff that I couldn't see otherwise. Like a bit like a microscope, of course, allows us to see things that we had never seen without. So for me, that's what I really like working with technologies will be that aspect. That's why microphones for me, just as simple as it is, a microphone can capture and amplify things, and then I hear things that my ear cannot hear. So yeah, I will say definitely, and that's it's how you say that? It's augmenting also all those aspects that I said and I don't think I will work the same way if I will have never used technologies at all. Even if the body, of course, can be also a form of technology. And we can argue about it, but of course, those those tools of precision made me see and perceive things that I will have never perceived otherwise. Yeah.
Il faut qu'on s'arrête ici parce qu'on a 7 minutes de pause avant la prochaine rencontre. Merci beaucoup, Alexandre. Merci beaucoup, Emilia.
Merci, Amélie. Merci.
Vraiment très intéressant. Dans 7 minutes, on se retrouve avec Burton. Le micro a fait ça.